Well, I had this kind of interesting political career. Started on the Wichita, Kansas school board. Then I went to Congress for 18 years, frankly, largely because when I was first elected, it was Reno County and Hutchinson that put me way over to the top. And then after the Congress, I became Secretary of Agriculture under President Clinton and was there for about 6 years. And then after that, I did a few other things and ultimately ended up as chairman and president of the Motion Picture Association of America. So I was basically chief lobbyist for Hollywood. So I went from agriculture to the movies and other things here and there, and decided, well, I'd write it all down. And it was I think my main reason for writing this book was because I've become convinced that our society has become humorless, that especially in government and in politics, where laughter is a thing of the past, and we don't laugh at ourselves, or there's very little self-deprecating humor. So I thought I'd write this book, talk about a lot of my own experiences, and how humor has helped me throughout my life.
We have got a great guest with us today. Dan Glickman joins us here on our broadcast. He has got an amazing new book. It's called Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, on the Farm, and at the Movies. And he joins us today here on the telephone talking a little bit about this incredible, incredible book. Now, you tell the story of a classical family background, religious heritage, Midwestern niche-type roots. Tell us a little bit about what the reception about the book has been. What's been some folks that have given you reviews or feedback or even criticism on the book?
Oh, the reviews have been extraordinary. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think a lot of people like the fact that I'm in a sense kind of the quintessential American story. Came from immigrant grandparents who came here from Central and Eastern Europe and ended up in central Kansas. And my dad went into business with my grandfather and into the scrap iron and ultimately the oil business. And then they ultimately ended up running a AAA baseball team in Wichita, the Wichita Arrows. But it describes how I kind of got into agriculture and how whereas my background wasn't in farming and agriculture, it became the specialty of my certainly my political and government career, and how important I thought farming and agriculture was for America. So it's a series of anecdotes. I think people think it's funny. I think the point of the book was that I got in and out of jams a lot in my life, and humor was such an important part of building bridges, and it's something that's missing in American political life.
Yes, I will definitely agree with you on that. We have got Dan Glickman with us today. He joins us live here on our big program. He has an amazing new book out there, and it's called Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, on the Farm, and at the Movies. And Dan tells his story about just his long, successful career as a politician, end up becoming, working in Hollywood and working as a lobbyist for those folks. One of the things that I do want to get your thoughts on, as it concerns the fact that fairly recently with all the COVID issues, one of the things that a lot of folks were keeping a track of is the fact that the folks in Hollywood had been lobbying and had been trying to get, I don't know why they call it a bailout, but essentially a bailout from the government because of the fact that COVID stopped some of these movies from being in theaters, things like this, and it wasn't just the Hollywood folks. It was the music venues and things like this. Why do you, from a lobbyist perspective, why do you think that was kind of stalled until finally the folks with the purse strings gave in and ended up giving these guys what they needed? What was, from a lobbyist perspective, what was it? The fact that the lobbyists weren't doing a good enough job, or what was the government not really interested in helping these folks? Well, because you have a unique perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, well, certainly during COVID, I mean, the whole country shut down, and the two parts of the country that were particularly were impacted were restaurants and entertainment venues like movie theaters and sports arenas, and any place that there was a crowd, basically they were shut down, and so the government. Congress looked at this, and they ended up passing very substantial legislation, really impacting almost all segments of the American economy. I mean, agriculture got significant payments as part of this, and so. Movie. It wasn't so much Hollywood as it was movie theaters, and they're owned by different people. The people in Hollywood don't own the theaters. The theaters are owned by different individual organizations, and so that's kind of what happened. Because for a while, for almost a year, basically you couldn't go into a place where there was a crowd of people. Period. Yeah. And so that's kind of the reason.
We've got Dan Glickman with us today. He joins us live. He was a Democrat in Congress for 18 years, and he was the Kansas 4th Congressional District representative. I want to get your take, and I know you talk a little bit about this in the book, Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, on the Farm and at the Movies, but talk to me about growing up Jewish in Kansas in the 50s.
Well, actually, it was fine. It's like I never really noticed any prejudice. I'm sure there was some, but it certainly, our family was very involved in the community, in business, and when I ran for public office, I won. In fact, in 1976, I defeated an incumbent congressman. And by the way, it was Reno County and Hutchinson that really put me over the top. But, the fact that I was Jewish did not have a great deal of impact one way or the other on my election. So I think that shows the greatness of America, that anybody can succeed. I'm not saying that there isn't some prejudice, that there is, but it was not significant when I ran for office.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good to hear. We've got Dan Glickman with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast talking about Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, on the Farm, and the Movies. Dan, you're a straight up kind of guy. I love, this book. I love, the fact that you tell it like it is. Why is it that so many politicians end up becoming lobbyists? Why is that? That is such a weird world we live in.
Well, it's like it is interesting. There are a lot of them that don't. But as a percentage, what happens is once you go to Washington, and you tend to stay there, and it's and the revolving door tends to work. So it's also true in state legislatures. People who are state legislatures, a lot of them will stay once they leave elective office and go into lobbying. And as I said, there's nothing really wrong with lobbying. A lot of people lobby for nonprofits, Cancer Society, Heart. A lot of people lobby for profit type of organizations, but I think the reason why is that it's what people know after they've been in elective office for a long time.
That's awesome. Dan Glickman with us today. Now, Dan, did you follow much of the election as far as in Kansas the last time that there was a governor's race a few years ago?
Yeah, what do you have in mind?
Well, what I was trying to figure out is we had a television show called Live from Salina where we interviewed everybody who ran for the governorship. The only person we didn't get to interview was Laura Kelly, which is the current governor. And what I was trying to figure out is she got in on the last couple days where you could register. And she ended up winning the primary over Josh Savati and Carl Brewer, who had went all over the state of Kansas, campaigning, doing all sorts of things. And then she comes in and she beats Kobach, which, you know, all kidding aside, it doesn't take much to beat that guy. However, what I was trying to figure out, Dan, is that she basically, she didn't campaign all over the state of Kansas for the primary. She basically just kind of campaigned in her section of the area, Manhattan, Lawrence, Kansas City, those areas, and ended up winning. Is that a situation where you pretty much don't have to go campaign all over the state to win the primary? What do you think about this, since you've been in Kansas politics a long time?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know very much about that particular race, but in a primary race, you kind of go where the votes are, and in the primary, and in a Democratic primary, my guess is that there were the majority of the Democrats who were voting in the primary were in Northeast Kansas, and that's probably why she did what she did. But I wasn't too involved in her campaign, although I did support her.
Yeah. Well, we've got Dan Glickman with us today. He joins us live here in our broadcast, and he has just an incredible book out there, Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, On the Farm, and the Movies. A few weeks ago, I had Dennis Kucinich on our program here talking about his latest book, and he mentioned that it took him since the 70s to write his book because he got busy and all these various things. How did you find time to write this book and put this book together? Take me through kind of the writing process for the book.
Well, I would tell you it took me a long time, and I probably this will be the first and last book that I will write, because I'm not very comfortable writing, so I really had to spend a lot of time on it and go back and look at my archives and then write and rewrite and rewrite. And, ultimately, once you start writing, you remember things that happened many, many years ago, because I'm 76, so it's been, I've had a pretty good and full life. But it's not easy writing about yourself either. And then some people are very natural writers. They really know how to do it quite well. I'm a better editor than I am a writer. But I finally got it down, and I had a lot of help from my family, and then I had some colleagues that helped me put it together as well.
That's awesome. It's Dan Glickman. He's with us today here on our big broadcast, Laughing at Myself, My Education in Congress, On the Farm, and at the Movies. Now, you're still involved with the motion picture industry and the Motion Picture Association.
No, I've retired from there, but I have a son, John, who is in that business, and he's a movie producer in Los Angeles, and he's been involved in a lot of movies, including a couple of James Bond movies. He worked for a company called MGM, and he's now an independent film producer in Los Angeles. So he actually was in that business before I was.
Well, what I was trying to figure out is, I know the last couple years, it's especially with COVID, it's been hard on the movie industry to get people together in mass gatherings to do, the Academy Awards and some of these events. Do you think that, just your opinion, that maybe we should go back to like a smaller, intimate, Academy Awards where they do it in a dining hall like they used to do, way back in the day, and it's a smaller event like that? Or do you think that we should, once everything kind of opens back up, we should go back to the huge, big blockbuster production that the television show and the Academy Awards are known for?
Well, I think that what's going to happen is that, first of all, I think that things are going to start opening up, and people are want to go out, and whether it's on dates or just for something to do, people will still want to go out and love to go to the movies. But I think that what we've seen after COVID is that a lot of stuff is going to be on television and on your iPad and your Mac and your own personal computer as well, and there's a lot of great television that we found and that's been streaming at home over the last year that we didn't know existed. So we'll still go to the movies a lot, but we'll go for the big blockbusters. And I think that the smaller movies and related stuff will be on television. And I still think you're going to have all the award shows, but there's going to be more what I call smaller type movies than in the past. Because to a movie maker, you can really still be productive and make money doing the smaller stuff. So you'll still have your big James Bond type movies, Mission Impossible, that kind of stuff. They'll still be at your theater, but there's a lot of other stuff that will come right to your home.
Dan Glickman with us today. He joins us live here in our broadcast. Laughing at Myself is the latest from him, and he joins us today here on our big program. And one of the things I found in doing research for this interview, this is a strange stat to me, and maybe you can explain this to me a little bit better, because I'm in the political world, but I'm not. I don't have as much experience as you've got. But as of 2021, no other Democrat has won election to the congressional seat that you had at one point. Why is that?
Well, it's a very good question. But Kansas has always had a Republican leaning for forever.
Yes.
But there were a lot of Democrats elected in Kansas. When I was first elected back in the mid-1970s, actually late 70s, we had a Democratic governor. We had a few Democratic congressmen. We even had a Democratic Speaker of the House in Kansas. But Kansas has turned more red, more Republican in recent years. And we do, of course, have a Democratic governor, Governor Kelly, but the rest of the state elected offices are Republican. But we do have one Democratic congresswoman from Kansas, Sharice Davids, from the Kansas City metropolitan area.
Yes.
So, but our state leans red, always has. It's just redder than it used to be.
We've got Dan Glickman with us today. Now, after all of your political career that you've done, when you ran for, what was it, Wichita Public Schools, a publicly elected member of the Wichita School Board, would you have ever envisioned that your political career would have taken you as far as it did?
Probably not, but that's why when you're young, you can do all sorts of things and take risks that you don't do when you get older.
Yeah.
When I was elected to the school board, I was 28, and then I was 31 when I was elected to Congress. And I imagine if I had been in my 50s or 60s, I wouldn't have had the courage or even taken the risk to run for higher office. But when you're younger, you haven't been burned by experience yet, and sometimes you make foolish decisions. But sometimes you do things that you would do just because you're young and you're not afraid. And so I guess that's the best answer to your question.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's kind of what I was looking for there, Dan. Before we let you go, what are some of your goals for this book?
Well, I hope that one, I sell some copies. After all, I worked on it for a while, and I hope people enjoy it. I hope they laugh. I hope the political class in this country can see that little self-deprecating humor among our political leaders is a good thing, that in fact help people build bridges rather than burning bridges, which is important, to get things done. I mean, politics the atmosphere has been pretty toxic, both in Washington and even around the country. And so this book shows how you can kind of lighten up a little bit and get things done. Well, Dan, you've always been a stand-up guy. You're not an ideologue. You're not a crazy kook. You're kind of in the middle. And I really enjoyed chatting with you today. Thanks for doing this, man. This has definitely been. You're welcome. I appreciate it. Miss you all back there in the Hutchinson area, but tell everyone hello for me. Yes, I will, my friend. Well, Dan, before we let you go, how do people get in touch with you online, websites, social media, buy the book, all that? Well, the best way, there's online. You can buy the book. You just go online, you put in my name, and buy it on Amazon. And then in Wichita, there's a bookstore called Watermark that they sell it at. And so it'll be at bookstores, but you go online, it's available.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, I appreciate the opportunity. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you for doing this, my friend.